infrastructure project requires careful planning. A combination of public and private funding, as well as innovative solutions such as PPPs, green bonds, and infrastructure funds, help projects stay on time and below budget. This technique not only ensures efficiency, but also promotes long-term sustainability and resilience in the face of shifting demands. To shed more light on this concept, we have renowned speakers who will share their expert insight and perspective. Please join me in welcoming RA Rajeev, IAS Retd, and currently the Director of Urban World Consulting, who has 34 years of experience in urban development, environment, and finance. He worked as the Principal Secretary in Maharashtra's Finance Department and as Joint Secretary Finance in the Department of Atomic Energy. As head of the Mumbai Metropolitan Development Authority, he oversaw mega projects worth $21.42 billion, including 340 kilometers of metro and the Mumbai Trans-Harbour Link, which received support from the worldwide agencies. We also have with us Mr. Ujwal, Landge, partner and CEO of Patil Associates. He has over 25 years of experience, including 8 years in senior position in a worldwide consulting firm and as a CFO of a rapidly expanding software company. His areas of experience include auditing, mergers and acquisitions, business process re-engineering, valuation, taxation, and business restructuring in industries such as engineering, infrastructure, FMCG, IT, and pharmaceutical, with a focus on cost management and system evaluation. Let's kick off the fire chat conversation and dive into an engaging exchange of ideas.
You need resources. You need resources, manpower resources, you need land resources, but at the same time, the biggest problem which the urban local bodies generally face, very few urban local bodies are lucky enough to have good financial resources, is the gap between the requirement and the availability of finances. Let me put this thing in perspective. Interestingly, this discussion is supposed to be a fireplace side discussion when there is no fire here. So,
discussion will add fire.
No, I don't think that the discussion is going to add fire because fire is missing. The finance is missing from the urban local bodies. So, there will not be any fire, I hope. But let me put the things in perspective. At the global level, be it the developed countries where the infrastructures came up very early historically, but now those infrastructures need upgradation. So they also need finances. And the developing countries where we belong and we stand, we are having a big backlog of infrastructure projects in our country. So taken together, one study says that by 2030, this world will need around 96 trillion US dollars of funds for the infrastructure projects which all the urban local bodies taken together, they need to implement these projects. And what is the availability? Every year, 2.5 to 3 trillion dollars. Now you can understand what is the gap between availability of funds and the requirement of funds in infrastructure projects. Generally, as a citizen and a very concerned citizen was asking a question, so I believe there are few concerned citizens here apart from the private sector players and the government representatives. They think that government is not able to implement projects on a faster scale. This is one of the very critical reasons why things are not happening elsewhere and in our country as well. In our country, if you take it, then there is a demand for 143 lakh crores of funds by 2030 to implement infra projects in the country. And what is the availability? This year, budget availability says 11.11 lakh crores. So even if this goes on an incremental path, where will we be in 2030? It's a very easy calculation and mathematical calculation, and you can think of where will we be and what will be the gap that time. The 143 crores of demand will also by that time increase, because so many other rural pockets would have become urban. The way the urbanization is taking place in this country. So this gap is ever increasing gap, and how we are going to fill it. I give the mic to Mr. Ujwal, who comes from the private sector background and will throw some light on it, and then maybe I chip in after that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's a very interesting question. Whenever we decide financing for any project, traditionally approach has always been to find out what is return on investments. We always see return on investments, and that's how the entire concept is defined in past, and investments are done in different projects. But when you look at infrastructure, the definition of defining the return on investment has to be changed. If you're able to change return of investment definition, probably there will be a lot more avenues which will come to us for addressing projects. I'll give you some examples now. My return of investment, when I say growth, India, when I say GDP growth, India GDP is say 7%. It is not actually 7%, it is 11-12%, and we reduce from that inflation, and then we say net growth is 7%. Same way, when I talk about infrastructure development, we also have to define growth based on a lot of other parameters which we say will be added. It could be ecological, it could be bringing efficiency in the system, it could be an economic development of that area, or it could be solving of an existing problem. And there are costs which are when we implement such environment projects. Those costs could be in form of an environmental cost. This could be in form of displacement of certain communities, certain areas, regions. A lot of these factors are taken into account, and then we have to derive. There's a need to redefine a formula. How do we define our growth and return on investment? The moment we know how do we define what is my return on investment, probably we will be able to prioritize projects which need high priority, which cannot be do away with. I know each infrastructure project is always on a priority, and when it is taken up, it's already late. It's as late as already it should have been done yesterday. But when you look at when we have limited resources, we should be able to prioritize. This prioritization can happen only when you are able to define it. What is most important for humankind, or what is most important for the perspective what we are trying to solve it, what we are trying to implement. That's one approach. So the limited resources can be deployed to projects which needs high priority. Those priorities have to be defined based on those formulas. Of course, each one of us, we are trying to do it. There is a public-private partnership, and there is recently there is a viability gap funding. Government has come out in the recent way. What is viability gap funding? Government says, okay, if there's a public-private partnership, there could be a project which is not viable. Say I'm putting 1,000 crore on a specific road development. I know based on certain calculations, we'll never be able to calculate or get returns of say 200 to 300 crores in future in a certain time frame manner. So what government is trying to do is trying to chip in some kind of viability funding from government so that the project becomes sustainable. What I'm trying to explain in this is there has to be a collaborative approach with government. Government has to understand the significance of or the importance of continuation of that project or execution on time, and the effects it's going to reap in future. So when we talk about limited resources, how do we manage our business is always prioritizing things where we can deploy funds, giving importance to this, doing other activities like there could be different ways of funding, joining hands with countries outside country. We have sovereign funds, we have other approaches, different financial models. We've used ham models. Now, what Sir said, there's a massive requirement of $97 trillion. So that clearly indicates our existing financial models, be it a ham, be it a build, operate, transfer model, be it a public-private partnership. They all have limitations. That's what it is shown. Despite of having these kind of models, we are not able to bridge this gap. So there is a need for us to devise a new financial model which can address certain things, those financial models, those resource models based on certain formulas and devise. And the first step towards in such is this viability gap funding which government is trying to come up with. This is my submission.
Yeah, very, very important issues have been raised by Mr. Ujwal. Certainly, prioritization is very, very important for which project to be funded first and which to be next. But Mr. Ujwal, you also said with that most of these projects were required yesterday, right? So they were required yesterday. So today, all of them have become on priority projects. Like what Mr. Sonone was saying that Kalyan, he could not do the solid waste management projects. Mumbai also, one project was done as the executive engineer was sitting here, he was making presentation. One project was done by me, and after that, more than 10 years, not a second project has been taken up. So one waste processing project is running in Mumbai. That was done when I was in BN, Mumbai Municipal Corporation. And after that, 10 years, 15 years have gone and no new project has come up. Devnar still is waiting for a new project, or Moland was waiting for a new project. So all these projects are on priority basically. So that is one dilemma which one faces, whether sewage treatment plants or whether solid waste management projects or whether public transportation. Public transportation again has become. So all these projects have become very, very important and very, very crucial for it, because if you don't solve the public transport problems, congestion is increasing in this city. With congestion, the inefficiency in the lives of citizens have been increasing in this city. People are wasting more and more time in traffic. There is a pollution angle to it. And people are buying cars because public transport is not sufficient. So, investment in public transportation is very important. And that's why the present government, and since 2004, the emphasis on constructing more and more metro lines in the city have come up. Now, there have been different ways of funding it. I am coming directly to the funding pattern of it. Mostly, and most of the infrastructure projects are funded directly by the debt financing system from the international banks, multinational banks, or bilateral agencies and banks. They fund it, and that is the better way of doing it, because most of these projects are having a long gestation period. A. Number two, their rate of returns are very low, and even if after completion, they don't bring in a lot of income to the organization. Public transport, mainly in most of the cities, are, if they are able to manage themselves operation, cost of operation and running of it through the their fare box collection as well as non-fare box collection, that is sufficient. But the total capital capex is very, very high in these projects. So what are the other ways of funding it? Can you elaborate it from a private sector's point of view? Because we have seen that public-private participation in most of these projects have also not gone a long way, and they're in a very, very nascent stage in this country. So, can you do that?
There are two broad components in this question. One is about funding, and one is about getting return on your investment on funding. These are two. Unless we see return on investment, we can very well attract a debt fund. First question is, why will some country give you debt at extremely low rate of interest, 0.01%? Somebody is trying to fund us, and what are they expecting? Japan is spending India's bullet train. What is Japan is expecting? First, we need to understand this, how these funding operates. It's very important for us to understand. Typically, it's just very strategic questions. No country has just invested because of love and affection in India. We have to become a significant in global market. A significance of India has to grow only then when we can attract attract investment. I'll give you one simple example. We all know CPEC. It's a Chinese product, investment, road and belt and road initiative across the globe. Now, because of that, China is able to spread its economic power beyond China. Now, India is trying to counter. India has its limited resources. There are many countries they are competing directly with US. So US wants to counter it using different geographical areas. So US has built some kind of cord, and we have other activities like IMEA, this India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. These corridors have come in place because somebody is trying to counter somebody. Now, this India Economic Corridor or Quad kind of associations or groups, they're funding because they have interest as a part, they have their economic, a part of their global agenda. Need not be an economic interest. Globally, it could be a geopolitical agenda to address this out. So that's how a lot of these things get addressed. There is a reason why money is coming to us, because somebody wants to have their interest, India's interest with that country getting strengthened. Now, return on such investments is very interesting. Now, we had earlier my transportation used to move from India, Mumbai to Delhi. Material used to take 5 days, 5.5 days to reach. We brought beautiful roads. Even if you put beautiful roads, this can bring down to 3.5, 4 days. So there is a saving of fuel, the saving of working capital, the efficiency fine. Besides the road, there's an economic development. All these things are adding. But now, unless we have regulations supporting it, we cannot go beyond that. Now, we brought GST. GST took out a lot of other hurdles, wherein the transport had to wait on highway for long. So that has brought down timing of material reaching from Mumbai to Delhi is 2.5 days. Now calculate economic benefit out of it. So the economic benefit, why government is able to collect tax, which need not be directly attributable, but yes, there are ways of calculating these demographic developments. Talk about an example, Mumbai-Pune highway. When it was built, imagine the money what we spent and what we were expecting. Now, the benefits are going to come for generations which are going to use this. The entire economic development which is happening along this road or the area has totally changed. It has brought a lot of other things. So there are two aspects. So when we look at this, the country which is investing has some agenda. That agenda, we need to be right as fitting into that. We should be able to market ourselves and showcase it and take it forward. So these are also used as a soft powers. These kind of funding which happen from over. I'll give you an example. When in COVID we supplied vaccines to other countries despite of we having shortage of it. Why? Because we wanted to create some kind of soft power. Same soft power works in economic world as well. People or countries want to give certain kind of funding to you because they have some geopolitical agenda. So we need to be able to fit ourselves in that, attract more and more. So this is how the entire thing works as far as attracting funding. And the benefits we have to repeat calculated using different calculation. The one that I was trying to give example of Mumbai Delhi. It's a combination of infrastructure, combination of beautiful policies which we are able to implement, and the benefit of automation. It's all working together. So this is how we are able to do this.
Interesting. Certainly, what Mr. Ujwal has just said, infrastructure and good infrastructure brings economic prosperity and economic development. It's not the other way around. You are economically well developed and that's why you will have good infrastructure. No. You will have good infrastructure and then only you will develop. That's the way. And that's why we need very good infrastructures to happen. So far as the government is concerned, the key lessons for government is that whenever any project is planned, there should not be any time and cost overruns, because a project which is implemented in time also saves a lot of money, which can be easily available. Most of the projects, unfortunately, in our country, run into time and cost overruns. And because of that, the cost revisions create so much of imbalance in the budget that makes it very difficult for the new projects to be taken. So, for the government, the best learning, the most important learning is that if you start a project, you should not delay it. You should complete it as fast as possible. And for that, if there are any hurdles in the way, that government should, through its own power, should try to reduce. So far as citizens are concerned, they should use these infrastructures as much as possible. Like there are cities where metros have been created, but people are not using it, unfortunately. So there are reasons for that. I don't blame citizens completely, but there are reasons for that. We were talking about garbage. Some citizen was complaining that the garbage is lying here. My question is, from where the garbage has come there? What the citizens were doing? The citizens should not put garbage where it is not supposed to be thrown away. So these are the responsibilities which everybody has to follow, and the private sector players also. There is a case of rent-seeking behavior of people. Rent-seeking behavior of people is something which is beyond control of everybody, but everybody should come together to control it. It's very difficult, but the big elephant is lying in this hall to tie up, and it's everybody's responsibility to tie up the rent-seeking behavior of all stakeholders taken together. Then only we can implement projects nicely with good quality and with good results. Thank you.
I'll try to wrap it in 2 minutes max. I just want to add what Sir said. Government has to complete its project on time. Also, government also has to provide redressal mechanism where it can avoid disputes during the work execution, and we get our judgments on time. That's extremely important. We are expecting it from government. Not only the way we run our hardware, our computer, its efficiency is determined not only by hardware. The infrastructure cannot run on its own unless you have a software. That software is called your digital infrastructure. So we cannot avoid digital infrastructure. If our digital infrastructure is equally strong, my hardware can give more efficiency than what it is. So my digital infrastructure has an example of Aadhaar, UPI, Seagate, DigiLocker, government e-marketplaces. All this information plays a very key role. The Aadhaar has played something which is beyond imaginable thing. We do not need census counting of humans anymore because we have live data available. We know where to put what money. We know demographic situation. We know where people are working. We know where people are doing economic activities because this is linked to your UPI. And UPI technology is not a technology which is out of the world. It's not a rocket science. Many countries have it, but they are not able to implement it because they do not have basic KYC system, digitized KYC system, which India has for 138 crores people, which is massive. And that's why we are able to run our economy much faster. Our softwares are much better. Software in this is our digital infrastructure. So I think we are much better placed. We can bring down a lot of cost. We can bring down a lot of efficiency in execution of our projects if we know how to use our software to execute our hardware. That's how it's going to work. So with this, I close my remarks. Thank you, everyone.